One of the other good features inside Tall Emu is the quoting and selling. So this is obviously the heart of any business. You're going to go out there and you want to try and put your best foot forward with a quote. And Tall Emu makes that nice and easy, and not in small measure due to the fact that it integrates with both MYOB and Xero. So any products that you already have defined in those accounting systems can come across into Tall Emu. Now, I'm going to show you progressing an opportunity from the opportunity stage through to a quote and then to a sale. Now, I'm doing that just so you can see how it works with the sales pipeline that's built into Tall Emu, but it is important to know that you don't have to use that sales pipeline. If you want to, you can just jump in, do a quote, or even just do an invoice and sell the product straight away. So I'm kind of showing you this, I guess, as the long form way of doing it, so you can really see what's available. And then later on, you can adapt what I'm doing here to suit your own particular business circumstances. So here we see we have a new coffee machine opportunity for the Bugs Bunny Cafe. And so it's actually at the stage where the customer requires a quotation. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and do just that. So I'm going to scroll down here and I can see things that have already happened on the timeline. And I'll go to my quotes tab and I can either add an existing template quote. So for a coffee machine, you might already have a template quote that says, one coffee machine, one service, some sample coffee, things like that. Or I can just add a quote from scratch. So for the purposes of this, I'm just going to go and add a quote from scratch. Now we can see that it's pulled in here, obviously the customer and the company from the opportunity. It's got default payment terms of 7 days. It's got a valid till date, which has been specified, actually 1 month by default. I can specify things like a delivery date as well if I need to do that. And later on, we could see some more advanced things like putting this on a calendar and scheduling those deliveries. But for the moment, we'll just stick to the basics. So first of all, on our quote, it's a current quote. The status is current. It's a brand newie. It's assigned to me because I've just created it, but I could just as easily assign it to somebody else. And I'm selling from the Sydney office at the retail price level. Now, we are multi-location. It doesn't matter if your MYOB or your Xero doesn't support it. We do. And the same thing with customer price type. Every customer can have a price type. I don't think Xero supports any. I think MYOB supports 5. Tall Emu, it's unlimited. And the other thing that we can do is we can put in place sliding scale pricing, customer specific pricing, date-based pricing, location-based pricing, and so on. So we've got a fair bit of flexibility there with what we do around pricing. If we know it, we can capture the customer's PO number. It's probably a little bit early. We can see that this quote is related to an opportunity, as I mentioned a second ago. Doesn't really have to be. And then if we jump over this side, we can see whether we're showing prices in correct text. We can optionally put in the source of business, so that could be Facebook, LinkedIn, customer referral, you name it. And then our web template, we can have as many different quote templates as we please. So if you had hire versus sales, you can have a different quote template for that. The quote also can have a follow-up date specified. So I'm going to go and say we're going to follow this up on the 23rd of December. And I'm not going to do that myself. I might go and assign that to Kieran. I can also pop on here expected close dates and things like that. And we can see here also that we're multi-currency. Now, there's a couple of other features that you might not see on other quoting systems that I'll very quickly explain. The first one is allow a deposit. And so we could basically say either as a percentage or as a dollar value, and I've just got this defaulted to percentage because that makes the most sense for most customers. Before this quote can proceed, I want a deposit. So if you're importing hardware from overseas, for example, you might give the customer a quote and the customer quote won't proceed. You won't order the goods until at least you've got half the cost of the goods. You can add in there multiple payment schedules as well. So you can enter in multiple deposit stages until you finally go and convert that to revenue. So probably beyond the scope of this quick demo to talk about that, but this is about revenue recognition and managing the deposit cycle. And then the other feature that we have is what we call progressive revenue recognition. And so what that basically means is that we're going to take, for example, the $100,000 job from the customer, and then we're only going to recognize the income from that as actual revenue, as actual income, as we progressively go and deliver the product. So if you imagine that you're, say, a catering company, you have a wedding, and basically the customer gives you a $50,000 check today, your P&L is going to look great for this month because you've got $50,000 worth of revenue and you've got no costs. And then come, June when the wedding rolls around, or December, sorry, we're in Australia, that's when summer is. Have a nice December wedding, and you've got all of the costs and none of the revenue. So what this allows us to do is recognize revenue at an appropriate time to keep your books all in line. Now, as I go down here, I can optionally put addresses in. I'm not going to do that for the moment, just wasting a bit of time. But what we can now do is go and do a quote. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a coffee machine to this quote. So I have a coffee machine item inside here. It's a 2-group coffee machine. It's $7,000. This has come from the data file inside Tall Emu. We can see we buy them at $5,000 a pop, so we're making $2,000 gross profit, and which is about 28%. That's quite a neat little feature. Now, if I wanted to, I could go inside here and I can go and edit this, and I could pop in some bold text, and I could say, for example, floor stock X demo offer, pop that in there. Now, what I could also do is I could put coloring around that, or bullet pointer, or include images or things like that. And I might just then say, reduce the price down, say to $6,000, something like that, in line with what we quoted the customer. Actually, let's make it 6,500. There we go. Keep that margin over 20%. There we go. So I've got my item on the quote, and I'll just pause for a moment and we'll save that off. So that's a very basic sort of quote item. And here's our quote. Now I have an ability to go and pop attachments on the quote. They can be anything I like. These attachments here are for our internal use. So it could be customer specifications, contracts, designs, whatever you like, just one place to centralize that. I could also go up here and I could pop tags on the quote. So I might flag that this is a chain brand and it's family owned. And so they will just appear every time I open this quote, just to flag it to me and bring it to my attention. If there was something important down here, say on the timeline, now there's not at the moment, but let me just make a quick note. And let's just say cost sensitive, for example. One of the things I can do is I can pop that on the timeline. I can also pin that. And so that will now always be at the top of my timeline. But look, we've just made a quote. So now what we can do is either we can preview that quote as a PDF. So that's similar to what you'd see, in MYOB or Xero, classics of the PDF quote. We could print that out and we could hand that to the customer. What I could also do is I can send the quote via email. Now we've got some merge codes inside here, and I can select from many templates. You can define your own templates. I can hit the button and I can send that as a PDF attachment out, in this case to Bugs Bunny. And that'll sit there, that'll go. Now you can send that on your own email address. It doesn't have to come from a Tall Emu email address, so you keep your branding. But what I can also do, which I think is really nice, is there's a little button here that says Preview as Customer. And what that does is it uses the Tall Emu web quoting feature. And so you can see here the Fine Foods logo, that's our fake company name. And then we have, our layout, our product, our commentary there that it's a special offer. And so we can email or text this to the customer. Now, by default here, this says webquotes.tallemu.com, but that could just as easily say quotes.finefoodaustralia.com. That's part of the service that we offer to tailor this up to be on your brand. And so you can text or email this to the customer. Now, when the customer gets that quote, they have the ability to see your terms and conditions. You can have as many of these quote templates as you please. You could have one for, say, coffee machines, one for sale, one for hire, one for service, different T's and C's on each one. You don't have to have T's and C's, but you can. You can also see down here, it's possible for the customer to ask a question. So we could say, does this include, any warranty, for example, and submit that question. And now what happens is the salesperson is going to receive an email saying that Bugs Bunny has asked a question on a quote. And that is a phrase I never thought I'd ever say in a demo. So they will get the email. They'll click the link in the email. It will take them here. And we can see here, here's the question. We still see that item there pinned at the top. So what I can now do is I can reply to that. And I can say 12 months warranty as standard. and save that off. And so now if I were to go back and take a look again at that quote, what I can see now is that I've got at the bottom here, the Q&A. And so the idea there is that we're capturing, the fine detail, the haggle, call it what you will, but we're capturing that information about the questions that the customer asks, and we can get back to them and they can see everything there on the quote. Now, that's a very, very simple type of quote, probably one of the more simple types of quote that we can do. So let me now go back into the system and I'll show you some other things that the quoting capability has. So first of all, I'm going to go down here and I'll go and click this little drop down there. I can actually do a multi-selective product. So if I hit that, it brings up my product list. I can do a filter and I can add multiple product lines or a single one like that. So I've got there some gluten-free pancakes. Now here you can see there's an is custom box has popped up, and that's because gluten-free pancakes are a product that we actually manufacture. So I'm not going to do anything with custom product at the moment. I'm just going to leave that be. The other thing that I could do is I'll go and pop on another item. So let's go and pop on, I don't know, some machine oil. And basically that's just another item. What I could do is I could go and add a group. I can move these around. I can go and I can pop things into the group. So maybe I'll put my machine oil in the group and maybe I'll delete it from here. And this could be, for example, service options. And I can make that look a little bit neater. And I could go and bold and boost up the size of that. And if I save and close that momentarily and preview again, we can now see here's my coffee machine, and then I've got a group with service options and some oil in there. So we're starting to get a little bit of an idea now of some of the more, complicated capabilities that the software has. So the other thing that I could do here, I'll get rid of that one, is I've got some pancakes here. Now, what I might decide to do is chuck these pancakes in. I'm going to be throwing in free pancakes. Maybe that's not the best thing to be throwing. Let's see whether we've got some other coffee. There we go, a coffee club subscription. And that's $100. So what I could do now is I could go and hit hide price and save that. There's the coffee club subscription. It's just been added on the end. So the customer can see the product, but the value of the product has been rolled up. So what I've done there is I've just hidden the price. Let's say, for example, if I go and edit that again, what I could do is I'll get rid of the coffee club subscription. I'll add something else that we can go pop in. Let's just add a pasta making machine. And what I could do is I could actually hide that entire line and save that. And so now that pasta making machine won't show up anywhere on that quote. And so if you're producing things where you say, okay, here is the main widget, here's the main item that I sell, and then we have other sort of sub items that go with it, you still want to track stock for them, but you don't want to show them to the customer, you can hide the entire line. I'll go and edit that again, and I'll show you just for the moment the final type of item, which is what we call a configurable item. So I'm going to go and add an item, and I'm going to go and add a mixer. So a Pro Mix Large, there we go. So what you can see now is that we have a group here called Mixer Add-ons. And as I go down here, I've got the option of a bowl pack, and I've got the option of a mixing pack. Now, depending on how this is set up, I can make it so either you must select one of these, or you can select one of these. So in this case, you could actually purchase both options. But I could say, for example, if this was a car, you could have the 17-inch tires or the 19-inch tires. You've got to pick one. So basically, we have a few different ways here of working with quotes to go and generate something that can be sent to the customer. And then when the customer goes to buy, we've got the options in here that we can click. Now, what I'll do is I'll take that off for the moment. I'll just make it nice and simple and I will sell the mixer. So if we again send that quote to the customer, what I can do now is I pretend I'm the customer. I hit my accept quote button. I sign the quote, and I change the quote. So let me just quickly go back. Need to select here, can accept online. So if you change the quote, that will actually drop off. So you need to change that before you send it to the customer. So let's do that again. Here we are. So here's my quote. Let's go and accept the quote. Accept the order. And now what's going to happen is the salesperson is going to get an email that says, here you are, Bugs Bunny has accepted that quote. And now I've got the option as the customer to make a deposit or pay the bill. And this is using either eWay or Stripe. So if I go and I place in the details, let's keep it how it was, Bugs Bunny. It's obviously not real credit card details, and hit the credit card. In this case, this is hitting the credit card via Stripe for the total value of the order, because I've said I'm going to pay the entire bill. And so now the salesperson is going to receive another email that's going to say, hey, even better news, Bugs Bunny has just given you $7,000. And if we were to go back inside CRM, what we can now see is we've got, first of all, the quote status is accepted. We now have a sales order. The sales order has an invoice associated with it and is also the status invoiced. And then when we look at the invoice, we can see here total amount, the GST, it's all allocated. We still see our GP. We can look at payments and we can see payment 54. And if I click on payment number 54, I can see it was made via Stripe. It has a receipt number, and here's how it's allocated. And now at that point, we've taken the customer from the quote, we've taken them all the way through, and we've got the money. It's all in the system. And this, if I were connected to either MYOB or Xero, that could now be transferred across to the accounting system. So you'd have a brand new customer called Bugs Bunny Cafe with invoice number I-90 for that coffee machine, paid by Stripe, all allocated, all the admin work is done. So your sales team don't need access into the accounting software. Now, if we go back and take a little bit of a look at the sales order, we can see here that this coffee machine is actually serialized. And so what I'm able to do is I can go inside and I can select it here, or I could select it at the point of shipment. So I'm going to select it here. And so now I've got that serial tracked. Now, if this customer came back again and said, hey, look, I'd like to place another order, I can just jump straight into orders. I'll hit my new order button. I'll type in Bugs Bunny. And we've got his phone number and his email there and the company name. So definitely the right Wabbit. I'll go down here, and this time I'm going to go and sell some oil. So I'll sell the macadamia cooking oil. And we see this time the product is batch tracked. But now because I'm actually selling, I can see what I've got available, whether or not it's on back order. So I could go and I'll sell one of these. And what I can do is I can pick my batch. So I'll go and take it from that batch. And again, I could do that either at the point of sale, or I could do that at the point of pick, pack, ship. And so here now we see we have the the customer can place orders very, very easily, get them into the system. Here's our sales order, track batches, track serial numbers, have those configurable items, serial tracked options. It's all there. It's really quite a powerful thing for quoting and selling.